An Introduction to Chemistry for Engineers 01. This lesson is intended for the students of the Rizal Technological University College of Engineering enrolled under the course Chemistry for Engineers 01. At the onset, have you ever wondered how our ideas about atoms changed over the years? This graphic looks at atomic models and how they developed over time. As early as 1803, Dalton drew up the ancient Greek idea of atoms. The word atom comes from the Greek atomos, which means indivisible. His theory stated that atoms are indivisible, those of a given element are identical, and compounds are combinations of different types of atoms. It is good that at this early stage, the solid sphere model was able to let us recognize that atoms of a particular element differ from other elements. But then, current knowledge suggests that atoms aren't actually indivisible. In fact, they're composed of subatomic particles. In 1904, Joseph John Thomson discovered electrons, which he called corpuscles, in atoms in 1897, for which he won a Nobel Prize. He subsequently produced the plum pudding model of the atom. It shows that the atom is composed of electrons scattered throughout a spherical cloud of positive charge. It is good to note that the plum pudding model recognized electrons as components of atoms. But then, in this model, we cannot see any nucleus, and it didn't explain later experimental observations. In 1911, Ernest Rutherford fired positively charged alpha particles at a thin sheet of gold foil in his foil experiment. Most passed through the little deflection, but some deflected at large angles. This was only possible if the atom was mostly empty space, with the positive charge concentrated in the center, which we call the nucleus. The nuclear model realized positively charged particles was localized in the nucleus of an atom. But then, this model did not explain why electrons remain in orbit around the nucleus. Now here comes Niels Bohr. In 1913, Bohr modified Rutherford's model of the atom by stating that electrons move around the nucleus in orbits of fixed sizes and energies. And the planetary model was born. Electron energy in this model was quantized. That is, electrons could not occupy values of energy between the fixed energy levels. This planetary model proposed stable electron orbits, which is true, and explained the emission of spectra of some elements. But we know for a fact that moving electrons should emit energy and collapse into the nucleus. And this model does not work well for heavy atoms. And finally, in 1926, Erwin Schrödinger stated that the electrons do not move in set paths around the nucleus, but is actually moving in waves. It is impossible to know the exact location of the electrons according to Schrödinger. Instead, we have our so-called clouds of probability or sea of probability, also called or known as our orbitals, in which we are more likely to find an electron. The quantum model shows electrons don't move around the nucleus in orbit, but in clouds, where their position is uncertain. And the quantum model is still widely accepted as the most accurate model of the atom. In the 1890s, many scientists became caught up in the study of radiation, the emission and transmission of energy through space in the form of waves. Information gathered from this research contributed greatly to our understanding of atomic structure. One device used to investigate this phenomenon was a cathode ray tube, the forerunner of the television tube. And in fact, through the cathode ray experiment, Joseph John Thomson was able to discover the electron. And the charge of an electron is determined through the oil drop experiment of Millikan or Robert Millikan. It is widely known that the plum pudding model of J.J. Thomson gave the birth to positive charge spread over the entire sphere, and the proton was born. But in 1910, the New Zealand physicist Ernest Rutherford, who has studied with Thomson at Cambridge University, decided to use alpha particles to prove the structure of the atoms. Together with his associate Hans Geiger and an undergraduate named Ernest Marsden, Rutherford carried out a series of experiments using very thin foils of gold and other metals in their series of experiments as targets for alpha particles from a radioactive source. They observed that the majority of the particles penetrated the foil either undeflected or with only a slight deflection. But every now and then, an alpha particle was scattered or deflected at large angle. In some instances, an alpha particle actually bounced back in the direction from which it had come. This was most surprising, and in fact, the findings for Thomson's model uh, gave way to the positive charge of the atom was diffused that the positive alpha particle should have passed through the foil with very little deflection. To quote Rutherford's initial reaction when told of this discovery, it was as incredible as if you had fired a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper and it came back and hit you. Rutherford was later able to explain the results of the alpha scattering experiment in terms of a new model for the atom. And according to Rutherford, most of the atom must be empty space. This explains why the majority of the alpha particles pass through the gold foil with little or no deflection. The atom's positive charges, Rutherford proposed, are all concentrated in the nucleus, which is a dense central core within the atom, and whenever an alpha particle came close to a nucleus in the scattering experiment, it experienced a large repulsive force and therefore a large deflection. Moreover, yung alpha particle traveling directly toward a nucleus would be completely repelled and its direction would be reversed. The positively charged particle in the nucleus are what we call now as protons. Now, Rutherford's model of atomic structure left one major problem unsolved. It was known that hydrogen, the simplest atom, contains only one proton, and that helium atoms contain two protons. Therefore, dapat ang ratio ng mass ng helium to that of the hydrogen atom should be 2:1. And because electrons are much lighter than protons, their contribution to the atomic mass can be ignored. In reality, however, the ratio is not 2:1 but 4:1. Rutherford and others postulated na baka mayroong another type of subatomic particle in the atomic nucleus. And the proof was then provided by another English physicist, James Chadwick, in 1932. When Chadwick bombarded a thin sheet of beryllium with alpha particles, a very high energy radiation similar to gamma rays was emitted by the metal. Later experiments showed that the rays actually consisted of a third type of subatomic particles, which Chadwick named to be neutrons, because they proved to be electrically neutral particles having a mass that is slightly greater than that of the proton. The mystery of the mass ratio could now be explained in the presence of neutrons. In helium nucleus, there are two protons and two neutrons. But in the hydrogen nucleus, there is only one proton and no neutrons at all. Therefore, the ratio is 4:1. All atoms can be identified by the number of protons and neutrons they contain. The atomic number Z is the number of protons in the nucleus of each atom of an element. In a neutral atom, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So, the atomic number also indicates the number of electrons present in the atom. The chemical identity of an atom can be determined solely from its atomic number. For example, the atomic number of fluorine is 9. This means na bawat fluorine atom ay mayroong 9 protons and 9 electrons. Or, viewed another way, every atom in the universe that contains 9 protons is correctly named as fluorine. The mass number A naman is the total number of neutrons and protons present in the nucleus of an atom of an element. Except for the most common form of hydrogen, which has 1 proton and no neutrons, all atomic nuclei contains both protons and neutrons. In general, the mass number is given by mass number equals the atomic number plus the number of neutrons. The number of neutrons in an atom is equal to the difference between the mass number and the atomic number, or A minus Z. For example, if the mass number of a particular boron atom is 12, the atomic number is 5, indicating 5 protons in the nucleus, then the number of neutrons is 12 minus 5, which is equal to 7. Now, note that all these quantities, the atomic number, the number of neutrons, and the mass number, must be positive integers or whole numbers. Atoms of a given element at most time do not have the same mass, and most elements have 2 or more isotopes. These isotopes are atoms that have the same atomic number pero magkaiba ng masses. For example, there are 3 isotopes of hydrogen. So, hydrogen 1 is simply known as hydrogen. It has isang proton pero walang neutrons. Ang pangalawa naman is hydrogen 2 or your deuterium. So, the deuterium isotope contains 1 proton and 1 neutron. The third one is tritium. Yung tritium or the hydrogen 3 has 1 proton and 2 neutrons. Another example of known isotopes is the isotopes of uranium-235 and 238. Uranium-235 is used in nuclear reactors and atomic bombs, while uranium-238 cannot be used for such applications, even if the most abundant radioactive material on the planet is uranium-238. Here's an example. Our task is to give the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in each of the following species. We just have to recall that the superscript denotes the mass number A and the subscript denotes the atomic number Z. Mass number is always greater than the atomic number, except for hydrogen 1, where the mass number 1 is equal to the atomic number also 1. So, we have here our solutions. So, for letter A, sodium 20, our protons is 11 with 9 neutrons. And of course, since this is electrically neutral, so the number of protons is the same as the number of electrons and also the same as your atomic number, which is 11. For letter B, sodium 22, we have 11 protons, 11 neutrons, and 11 electrons. Okay. So, the number of electrons here is 11. Note that species A and B are chemically similar isotopes of sodium. So, both of them are sodium. For letter C, we have oxygen 17. The atomic number of oxygen is 8, so there are 8 protons. The mass number is 17, so there are 17 minus 8 neutrons, and that is equal to 9. Therefore, since oxygen here is electrically neutral, we have a total number of 8 electrons, the same with the number of protons. For letter D, carbon 14, carbon 14 can also be represented as carbon or C14. The atomic number of carbon is 6, so there are 14 minus 6 neutrons, and that is equal to 8. And the mass number of electron, or the mass number, or I mean the number of electrons in carbon is 6. Another number that represents the ability or distinguishes one element from another is called your oxidation number. It is also the number that tells us how much of the electrons can be shared or can be accepted by a particular molecule or by a particular atom. So in free elements, that is in the uncombined state, each atom has an oxidation number of 0. For example, hydrogen 2, bromine 2, sodium, potassium, and oxygen. All of these are free elements in their elemental form. Bakit siya elemental form? Ito na yung pinaka-simplest form niya. In example, si oxygen, oxygen can only exist as a diatomic molecule O2. Now, for monoatomic ions, the oxidation number is equal to the charge on the ion. Example, lithium plus, barium 2 plus, and Fe3 plus consequently have positive 1 for lithium, positive 2 for barium, and positive 3 for iron, and so on. Take note that all alkali metals have an oxidation number of +1, and all alkaline earth metals have an oxidation number of +2 in their compounds. Aluminum also has an oxidation number of +3 in all of its compound. You may as well look at these numbers or look for these numbers in your respective periodic table of elements. Now, consequently, the oxidation number of oxygen in most compounds, for example, MgO and H2O, is -2. However, in the case of hydrogen peroxide and peroxide ion, oxygen takes an oxidation number of -1. This is an exception to the rule for the oxidation number of oxygen, which is by default equal to -2. And the oxidation number of hydrogen is always +1, except when it is bonded to metals in binary compounds. In these cases, for example, LiH, NaH, CaH2. By the way, this is a typo here. H2 here is the subscript. So in these cases, notice that hydrogen is paired with a metal. So whenever hydrogen is paired with a metal, its oxidation number is always -1. Otherwise, kung non-metal ang kabond niya, oxygen or hydrogen, always takes the oxidation number of +1. Rule number 5. Fluorine has an oxidation number of -1 in all of its compounds. Other halogens like chlorine, bromine, and iodine have negative oxidation numbers when they occur as halide ions in their compounds. When combined with oxygen, for example, in oxoacids and oxoanions, they will have positive oxidation numbers. Again, kung ang halogen mo na chlorine, bromine, and iodine is coupled with oxygen to form oxoacids or oxoanions, they will have positive oxidation numbers. Rule number 6. In a neutral molecule, the sum of the oxidation number or numbers of all the atoms must be 0. In a polyatomic ion, the sum of oxidation numbers of all the elements in the ion must also be equal to the net charge of the ion. And rule number 7, at some point, hindi naman po talaga kailangang integer ang oxidation numbers. In fact, pwedeng magkaroon ng oxidation number na -1/2. Kaya lang, these oxidation numbers that are not integers are so-called non-conventional oxidation numbers. In our case, we will be using integers because we will just be focusing on conventional oxidation numbers. Yan, here is an example. So we are tasked to assign oxidation numbers of the atoms in the following compounds. Okay. So, for letter A, okay, by rule 2, alam natin that lithium has an oxidation number of +1 and oxidation number of oxygen is -2. Okay. Now, by this time, let's have letter B. So, this is the formula for nitric acid, which yields an H plus ion and an NO3 minus ion in a solution. From rule 4, we see that hydrogen here has to have an oxidation number of +1. Thus, the other group, yung ating nitrate ion na NO3, must have a net oxidation number of -1. And so, for that to happen, oxygen must have an oxidation number of -2 and nitrogen is +5. Okay, for letter C, we have here rule 6 in effect. So the sum of the oxidation numbers in dichromate ion must be -2 because the formal charge of dichromate is 2 negative. So we know that oxygen has an oxidation number of -2. So upon computation, chromium must have an oxidation number of +6. As a recap, this module took up evolution of the atomic model, discovery of the subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons in an atom, and oxidation numbers. Up next, we will be focusing on balancing chemical equations, so it is a must that your knowledge in the previous discussion is retained. Stay tuned for the next update.